So Pope Francis is coming to town, and they estimate it's going to cost about 20 million. Now, I'm not very religious, but as far as I know, Jesus was an unemployed carpenter who said give all your wealth away. So wouldn't that 20 million be better off being spent on, say, building a new wing for Our Lady's Children's Hospital, or helping the homeless? Or maybe, here's a great idea, maybe they should give that 20 million to survivors of church sex abuse. Now, this isn't about knocking people with religious beliefs. I understand that life is hard and sometimes people need something to believe in. I'm an atheist, but I carry a key ring with a saint on it because my grandmother gave it to me before she died, and that means something to me. This is about criticising an institution that have oppressed people over centuries, and in Ireland for the last few decades. The new Pope makes some radical sounds, but what's going on behind the rhetoric of the man on the golden throne? On the surface, the new Pope seems like a decent fella. He goes on about how bad capitalism is, how we need to restrain neoliberalism. He visits refugees in refugee camps. And for this, he's being condemned by the reactionary wing of the church, who say things like the smoke of Satan is now in the Vatican. You see, the reactionaries in the church know what the role of the church has been. It's been to act as a pillar of the established order. As James Connolly once said, they preach humility, yet sit in the seats of the mighty. Bergoglio, the new Pope, is from Argentina, where the church was really conservative. There was a military coup in '76 that led to the establishment of a fascist dictatorship, which most clerics in Argentina supported. But across South America, there arose a philosophy called liberation theology, which saw working class and rank and file nuns and priests rebel against the conservative bishops and join left-wing social movements who are rising up against the established order. This actually flies in the face of a narrow-minded criticism of religion that comes from people like Richard Dawkins, who looks at a conflict between fascist bishops and working class priests and writes it all off as a conflict within religion, instead of understanding the classes that are mobilised behind the religious rhetoric. I, for one, would stand 100% shoulder to shoulder with people who are rising up against fascism. The US Empire reacted to these rebellions with brutal repression, helped by local fascist gangs and local elites. I mean, in Guatemala, 250,000 people were killed. In 1976, when the military took power in Argentina, the clerics even helped staff the torture centres. Bergoglio, the new Pope, was opposed to liberation theology. And even his most sycophantic biographers, the best thing they can say about the years of the fascist dictatorship is that he kept his mouth shut. But he was clever in his approach to liberation theology. He wanted to create a middle ground that would steal the thunder of the rebels in the church while leading them back onto safe ground. He wanted people to beg the rich for change and to plead with them instead of liberation theology's call to arms. So he learned how to use rhetoric that condemned capitalism while discouraging rebellion. But his anti-progressive credentials are even more clear when it comes to LGBT people, trans people or women. And his visit to Ireland will be used to prop up the church, which has acted as a political pillar of oppression in this country, aiding the Golden Circle in keeping working class people down. The old French socialist Fourier says you can judge a society by how it treats women. And what does that say about Ireland throughout the 1900s and into the early 21st century? As I said at the start, taking on the establishment in Ireland will involve people who are atheists, socialists and people who are religious standing side by side in movements like the water movement. There will be religious and secular people on both sides of any class divide. As long as people are oppressed, alienated, they'll turn to the drug of religion to try and give them some comfort in a heartless world. But we have to say to those people, working class people with religious beliefs, the church does not represent you. This Pope does not represent you. And I want you to join me on the streets, on the picket lines, and in the workplaces and communities in rebelling against those who hold us down and creating a better life for ourselves here on earth.